Kayla Mae Berg, Wausau, Wisconsin. Kayla Berg was born in 1993, and she just arrived to a new home in Antigo, Wisconsin. Well, it was her grandparents' home, actually, and she and her mother were looking for a home for them to live in. So she was sort of going back and forth between that home and that of her father, which was one town over. Kayla had made the decision to move in with her mom, but she was really homesick. Traveling between the new city and her father's home was pretty commonplace for her, but she didn't have a driver's license yet, and so she would need a ride. And so that made it a little more difficult. Additionally, she'd been dating an older boy named Miguel Marrero, who at 19 was 4 years older than Kayla was. Her mother was pretty angry about this, though. She felt that the boy was too old. Well, I guess man was too old for her. And she and Kayla, or at least she thought she and Kayla, had come to an understanding and that Kayla had broken up with her boyfriend. But it would come out later that it was an open secret among her friends that she had not done so. Kayla would express that she wanted to go to McDonald's to see some friends. And this was sort of a local hangout. And because she needed a ride there, her brother's friend would take her. This brother's friend was 24-year-old Kevin Kilchelski. He would pick her up around 8:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. that night. The specific time he picked her up sort of varies by story, but it's in that time period. The two were seen by witnesses together at McDonald's in Antigo, Wisconsin. So there's no question that she made it to the McDonald's. However, Kevin would say he didn't go into the restaurant with her. He stayed in the car and she ran in and was just there for a moment. She told her friends inside that she was planning to just drive around with Kevin. But Kevin's story would be somewhat different than that. There was later some confusion about where Kayla was spending the night that night between the family she sometimes stayed with and her mother in Antigo. Because of this, no one actually knew she didn't come home that night. Her father believed her to be with her mother, and her mother believed her to be with her father. And I realize this is a common ploy that teens do in order to have a little freedom, but there's no indication she did this on purpose. It appears this was a genuine accident, sort of born from the circumstances of going back and forth. But unfortunately, due to this, nobody knew she didn't come home that night. Kevin would say he dropped her off at a friend's home at 10 p.m. He would describe the home and later show them where it was. But the problem with that is that home was vacant. Nobody lived there. And Kayla knew it was vacant because the vacant residence actually had been condemned, and she knew it had been condemned because that was actually where her boyfriend Miguel lived at one point with his mother. So it's very odd she would ask to go there. And then, according to Kevin, all the lights were off, but he just left her there, and that he didn't see anyone else. They would, of course, approach her boyfriend to find out if he was meeting her there, but he said they had no plans that evening at all to meet up, and he had no idea why she would be at his old house. And her mother, for her part, too, was adamant that she knew for sure Kayla knew that house was vacant. There's no indication Miguel was giving any sort of a false story either. It appears he was elsewhere at that time. But there was also no proof anyone else was at that home. Her friends, when questioned at first, were pretty evasive, which is probably pretty common for someone that age. They were trying to protect their friend. They believed it had something to do with the boyfriend she was hiding from her parents. Although once it was clear that wasn't the case, they would say that they too knew that she knew that home was vacant. They also felt that there was no way Kayla would ever ask to go there. And everyone in her life kept looking for her. 6 days would pass as they looked all over the place for her, expecting her to still come back, and then finally reporting her missing. So then it shifts back to the last person that they know Kayla had been with. So this would leave the suspicion back to Kevin. Kevin picked her up around 9 p.m. that night, of course. They were seen at McDonald's, as I said. And it's odd that she would mention driving around with Kevin. Maybe she was proud to be seen with him. Maybe he didn't want to be seen with her. I don't know. Because he was good friends with her brother, they were pretty used to each other and knew each other pretty well. And I know here in my town, kids would travel around and congregate at fast food restaurants, in the parking lot of the restaurants, and even close businesses in a certain set area. I know here it wouldn't have been normal for someone 24 and old enough to drink, wanting to cruise around in an area like this. So she may have had a plan that didn't quite pan out. But if they had been cruising around that night or had any indication that something went wrong, it wasn't reported. Of course, at her age, it's a pretty prime time for bad choices, especially involving boys. It's just a normal part of growing up. So no one really knows for sure if she was lying to Kevin or he was in on it, if she was meeting someone else at the house and didn't want anyone else to know about it. It's a pretty prime place to meet if you want a home that no one's at. But of course, this was night and there was no electricity in the house. The abandoned house itself, this is 34 miles or 55 kilometers from Antigo. So also the travel time back and forth would take a little bit of time. So it's pretty unlikely if he got her to the house at 10 p.m. that they cruised around anywhere at all. He would have probably just taken her straight there. And we do know that Kevin was home by midnight, and he stuck to this story the whole time, saying he dropped her off at that abandoned house at 10 p.m. He never wavered with the time. What I haven't mentioned yet, though, is Kayla was afraid of the dark, terrified actually. It doesn't make a lot of sense that she would want to be alone in a house with no electricity. The police tried to trace Kevin's cell, hoping that the records would tell them whether or not he was lying, but there were no records at all. He would say that his phone died and he did not have it with him that day. He didn't make a call until 2 p.m. the next day, and he willingly handed over his car to the police to have them go through. And after they did this, they didn't find any evidence at all of anything bad happening. After determining his car was clean, they returned it back to Kevin. So this leaves Miguel. So he too was seen as fully cooperating with the police. He admits to seeing her at a house party the prior day, but on the night of August 11th, he had no plans to meet her, and in fact, he hadn't spoken to her. His phone records did not indicate that they did speak either. He appeared to be telling the truth. They did note that he had an old phone that hit off a cell phone tower in Lincoln County, 40 miles away. That phone received a call at 1:12 and 2:25 a.m. that night. I can't find any explanation as to what exactly happened with that. He then also gave the police his car to examine. Even more important, he provided them with permission to search the abandoned home, as well as the current rental he lived in. No trace of Kayla was found. The police even went so far as to go to the home with cadaver dogs, and nothing was found inside. The only thing that indicated a possible problem was a cadaver dog alerted at a pond that was located in that area. But a dive team came and thoroughly examined the pond, and nothing was found inside. Nor were there any clothes or items that belonged to Kayla that might indicate she had been there. But because they had the dogs and had access to them at the time, they got an idea. So they took Kevin's car, Miguel's car, and 8 other cars and lined them up in a row and then walked the dogs from car to car. One cadaver dog did alert on a car. The alarming thing is that that car was not one of the random cars. It belonged to Kevin Kilchewski. So I guess the next question is, how accurate are the dogs? One study seemed to indicate the dogs are accurate by about 95%, which is pretty high. It does sound, though, like they used multiple dogs, but I can't confirm that. So if one dog hit and the others didn't, that is a little bit weird. And it might indicate that it was a false signal. The police then expanded their search based on that cadaver dog's hit on the car. They would use the dogs again, extending the search to a property that Kevin's family owned. They also searched a potato farm where he was employed. Reportedly, a dog alerted at one of those properties, but they didn't find anyone there either. It seems like there's so many options in this case as to what may have happened to her, whether there was a third person or it was one of the 2 men that had gained suspicion at first. Maybe she was meeting someone, or maybe a stranger happened upon her. Or maybe she ran away, which I think is pretty unlikely. She had good friends and they had no suspicion that she would do anything on purpose. And in fact, she was really excited about school the upcoming year. But none of the men in this case were even listed as being a suspect in her disappearance. Kevin eventually would lawyer up, and Miguel stopped cooperating with the police. Although, to be honest, I don't know if I would blame somebody for doing this if the suspicion kept coming back to me and I didn't do anything. Kayla's father passed away in 2011 without ever knowing what happened to her. Kayla should have graduated from high school in 2012. Her friends would take time that day to honor her during their graduation and honor their sadness at wishing she was with them. When Kayla went missing, she was 5'2" and around 110 pounds, which is 158 centimeters and about 50 kilograms. If Kayla is still alive, she would be 30 years old today. It's possible the age progressions will show what she would look like now, but they really need someone who knows something about what happened to come forward. Her family deserves some kind of closure in this case. Kayla May Berg has been missing for 14 years. Huge thanks for watching all the way to the end, and a big thanks to all of you who consistently like and comment on the videos. Whether you leave a full comment or an emoji, it makes a huge difference. So if you consistently watch my videos, maybe take a moment to subscribe. It's a huge push toward the videos being suggested to new people. The next goal is 20,000. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care of yourselves and each other.